So finally, someone is taking a stand against this corrupt and corruption-enabling Supreme Court. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now filing articles of impeachment against Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. You know, I would start with the big camera intro, but I'm just gonna leave it be what it is. I forgot to do that, but it is what it is. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said on the floor the justices' refusal to recuse themselves from certain prominent cases represents an abuse of power and threat to our democracy. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York introduced articles of impeachment Wednesday against Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito over their refusal to recuse themselves from certain cases. Absent resignation, they must be removed, Cortez said on the House floor, arguing that the two justices pose a threat to the rule of law. Because of Alito's and Thomas's refusals to recuse, everyday Americans cannot, should not, and will not believe that these justices, and consequently the court that they serve in, is working to uphold the Constitution and put the country ahead of their own individual self-interests. Reasonable Americans will and do believe that the Justices Thomas and Alito are prone and subject to corruption, that the institution failing to punish them is broken, and that consequently their impeachment is a constitutional imperative and our congressional duty. Ocasio-Cortez said both justices had demonstrated a years-long pattern of misconduct and failure to recuse in cases bearing their clear personal and financial involvement. That, she said, represents an abuse of power and threat to our democracy, fundamentally incompatible with continued service on our nation's highest court. The Supreme Court did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the introduction of impeachment articles. Clarence Thomas himself has an abundantly shady relationship with an individual by the name of Harlan Crow, a conservative billionaire who has been financing some suspicious luxury trips and vacations for quite some time. So we're going to look into that. U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice Clarence Thomas took 3 trips that he did not include in financial disclosure forms, the Senate Judiciary Committee said on Thursday. Thomas, a conservative and the longest-serving member of the present court, has faced significant criticism over accepting luxury trips from billionaire Republican Party donor Harlan Crow. The 3 trips cited by the Senate Judiciary Committee include a private jet flight from Missouri to Montana in May of 2017, a second private jet flight from Washington, D.C. to Georgia, and back in March of 2019, a further flight from D.C. to California in June of 2021. Senator Dick Durbin, chair of the Judiciary Committee, said the trips in question were listed in information provided to the committee by Crow. The new information has led to criticisms from Democrats and renewed calls for Thomas to resign. The private jet flights are in addition to 2 paid vacations that Thomas revealed in new financial filings last week. Thomas filed a financial disclosure report on Friday that included 2 amendments for 2019 trips he took that were paid for by Crow. The filing included 2 separate trips from 2019 that were paid for by the Crows, including a trip to Bali, Indonesia on July 12th of 2019, and another trip to Monterio, California from July 18th to the 21st of 2019. The filing says that the items paid for during the trips included food and lodging at a hotel and a private club. Oh, looky here. Clarence Thomas's yacht trip to Russia raises questions. I mean, this man is an absolute mess. Newsweek has reached out to the U.S. Supreme Court via email for comment on Thomas's trips. In an emailed statement provided to Newsweek on Thursday, the office of Harlan Crow said Mr. Crow reached an agreement with the Senate Judiciary Committee providing information responsive to its request going back 7 years, despite his serious and continued concerns about the legality and the necessity of the inquiry. Mr. Crow engaged in a good faith negotiation with the committee from the beginning to resolve the matter. As a condition of this agreement, the committee agreed to end its probe with respect to Mr. Crow. A yacht trip and helicopter flights. Okay, he's living like Conor McGregor. Criticism of these newly revealed trips comes more than a year after ProPublica reported that Thomas and his wife, lawyer and conservative activist Ginny Thomas, took trips paid for Crow by almost on a yearly basis for over 2 decades. The report said that Thomas had received vacations, including a previously unreported trip on a yacht around the Bahamas, as well as 26 private jet flights and 8 helicopter flights, among other gifts. In a statement responding to that report in April of 2023, Thomas said, "Harlan and Kathy Crow are among our dearest friends, and we have been friends for over 25 years. As friends do, we have joined them on a number of family trips during the more than a quarter century we have known them. Early in my tenure at the court, I sought guidance from my colleagues and others in the judiciary, and was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable. I have endeavored to follow that counsel throughout my tenure, and have always sought to comply with the disclosure guidelines." This is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that I'm reading this is disgraceful. This is an individual who has basically been at the behest of a billionaire conservative donor over the course of 2 decades. A guy who has sat there and been flown. This man is Instagram model lifestyle. Then you got BBL, all type of flights going here and there. Like, what's going on? How is Clarence Thomas living basically in exchange for what I would imagine to be, hey Clarence, hey Mr. Thomas, if I pay for these flights and I pay for these meals and I finance all of this, surely you'll do your best to get things passed in this country that reflect my beliefs. This guy, and what's also really funny, is Justice Alito. I mean, this is a guy who has had all types of Trump-supporting flags flying over his house as he's overseeing a case that involves Donald Trump's attempt to steal an election. Basically telling the entire country, this is where I stand. I support this individual. Oh, and by the way, my position of power in this country is supreme in its legality, in its legal authority. So you can't trust me to make a legal and honorable and just and impartial decision. And we saw it when the Supreme Court basically ruled that what Trump did on January 6th fell within the realm of official acts. Conspire to steal an election? Well, all you have to do is formulate a meeting with other people who are under the executive branch, and no matter how criminal, how illegal, how violating of our Constitution and Republican democracy it might be, it's all an official act. And to make matters, better in their eyes, you can't inquire into what the president's motives were when he did it. So, yeah, he committed a crime, but you're not allowed to figure out why he wanted to do that. Now, we all know why Donald Trump did these things, why he made these phone calls, why he tried to pressure these, legislators, why he did presented false lists of electors. We know why he did all of these things, made all these calls to the attorney general and all. We know why this happened. We know what this was for. But the Supreme Court has, in its own little way, corrupt way, basically told the entire country, we know why he did it. We know that he did it. And we're going to write the law in such a way that you can't inquire into why he did it or how he did it. It's an official act. The how he did it doesn't matter. And you can't inquire into his motives, so the why also doesn't matter. Basically, what they've done is made the case impossible. You can't even inquire into the man's motives. So because he's the president of the United States, why he did something no longer matters when it pertains to him trying to steal an election from this nation. The Supreme Court is disgustingly corrupt. And the fact that AOC shouldn't even, their corruption, bias, and the bribery, we're going to get to that next. All of those things are horrible, but this immunity ruling is particularly disgusting. It's disgusting. And the fact that these individuals were willing to do that, to sit there and say you cannot inquire into the motives of the president, excuse fucking me. So because Donald Trump did something illegal and you want to protect him from it, you're going to now make it impossible by law to inquire into the motives of the president when he committed a crime under the guise of an official act. So you can't inquire into it if it's an official act, and you can't ask why he did that official act. Anything involving his subordinates is now an official act. We're dealing with corruption the likes of which we've never seen before, and to make matters worse, the Supreme Court basically justified bribery, as long as you pay them after the fact, and you make it look plausibly deniable. So the ruling offered by Kavanaugh In Snyder versus the United States, a 6-3 opinion issued on Wednesday in which the Supreme Court dealt the latest blow to federal anti-corruption law. In the case, which was divided along ideological lines, the court held that gratuities, that is, post facto gifts and payments. Bro, tip culture is crazy. Now the Supreme Court even also wants tips. We passed a law that you like? Tip here, please. What it like? If y'all vote for Trump this year, y'all going to hell. In the case, which was divided along ideological lines, the court held that gratuities, that is, post facto gifts and payments, are not technically bribes, and therefore not illegal. Bribes are only issued before the desired official act, and their meaning is explicit. A more vague, less vulgarly transactional culture of gratitude for official acts, expressed in gifts and payments of great value, is supposed to be something very different. The court has thereby continued its long effort to legalize official corruption, using the flimsiest of pretexts to rob federal anti-corruption statutes of all meaning. The case concerns James Snyder, who in 2013 was serving as the mayor of small-town Portage, Indiana. Late that year, the city of Portage awarded a contract to Great Lakes Peterbilt, a trucking company, and bought 5 tow trucks from them. A week later, Snyder was asked for and accepted a check for $13,000 from the company. Snyder was found guilty of corruption and sentenced to 21 months in federal prison. He argued that the kickback was not illegal because it came after he awarded a contract to the company that ultimately paid him off, not before. Absurdly, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed, classifying such payments as mere tokens of appreciation and claiming that they are not illegal when they are not the product of an explicit agreement meant to influence official acts in exchange for money. In so doing, the court has narrowed the scope of anti-corruption law for state and local officials to apply to only those exchanges of money, goods, and official favor in which an explicit quid pro quo arrangement can be proved. As in Cargill, the court's recent decision legalizing bump stocks, wherein the court declared that the gun accessories do not render semi-automatic rifles into machine guns based on a lengthy technical explanation of the meaning of a trigger function. The court in Snyder has made an extended belabored foray into a definitional distinction between bribes and gratuity. The glaring reality remains that this is largely a distinction without a difference. As Ketanji Brown Jackson noted in her dissent, this is an interpretation which no reasonable reading of the statute can support. In a dissent whose tone seemed exasperated, almost sarcastic, she called the majority opinion absurd and atextual, saying it elevates non-existent federalism concerns over the plain text of this statute and is a quintessential case of the tail wagging the dog. The bribery versus gratuity distinction, she said, allows officials to accept rewards for official acts in ways that are functionally indistinguishable from taking a bribe. If you're not getting it, this Supreme Court is not only enabling boatloads of corruption for Donald J. Trump, but also boatloads of corruption for themselves. These are people with no honor, people with no integrity, and these people are seduced by the possibility of taking over this nation and destroying the separation of church and state, which we've tried to uphold. It's not explicitly, stated in the Constitution. However, it is stated that Congress will not make any laws favoring any specific religion. But obviously, Project 2025 definitely plans to overrule these kinds of things and possibly even destroy certain parts of the Constitution we hold dear. The Supreme Court also enabled their own ability to just receive bribes as long as you pay me after, and it doesn't look too obvious. Don't send me a $13,000 check from your company after I, patronize your company or the state employed your company. Don't send me $13,000 right after from the company. Send me to Cuba or some shit. Pay for a flight to Cuba, maybe the Dominican, maybe Puerto Rico, maybe the Virgin Islands. Send me somewhere luxurious. Buy me a Gucci bag. Do something that's maybe something with plausible deniability. You know what I'm saying? That's basically what the Supreme Court has enabled in their own favor. These people are not serious people. These are not people who actually respect anything the Founding Fathers intended. That's why I always say the Founding Fathers were a weird group of dudes. They weren't normal. I really do believe there's a God or some kind of divine spirit that formulated the United States the way that it was. There's something very unique and special about our country. And the unfortunate reality is the most patriotic amongst us conservatives running around with freedom shirts and liberty shirts and don't tread on me flags are now about to undo all of the things that made our nation special. These people are twisted individuals who don't respect this nation, don't respect the rule of law, and are furthering its enabling of an individual who does not respect the rule of law or this country. So, at the end of the day, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is 100% right for trying to get rid of Alito and Thomas. And it's incredibly important that you vote for Joe Biden. I know all these soft-ass Democrats, but Joe Biden is getting so old. It's too late now. Don't start crying now. Don't let the tears drop now. When Joe Biden was considered the fucking nominee for the Democrats, y'all didn't say anything. It's only now y'all want to say something. It's obvious Joe Biden's in cognitive decline. It's abundantly obvious that he's in cognitive decline. We all know it. We can all see it. But Donald Trump and his entire movement is telling you, we will turn this nation upside down and strip you of your rights. And the more power we gain, y'all know it's going to get worse. There may not be anything racial written in Project 2025, but trust and believe, the more power they gain, the more the ugly starts to come out. Y'all know how this goes when people get comfortable with power. The reality is, Project 2025, Donald Trump, the Supreme Court are all threats to American Republican democracy. They have been, they always will be. And if you want this nation to survive, yes, voting for Sleepy, almost on his deathbed Joe, is the best course of action. And the reason why I'm confident saying this and have no apologies for advocating for a man with probably both feet in the grave is because the people behind him actually respect American rule of law and our Republican democracy. Whereas Donald Trump has fired each and every single person in his camp who was actually in favor of our laws, of our Constitution. He fired them all and is now completely surrounded by loyalists. So that is why I am happy to vote for Joe Biden, who probably doesn't even know where he is right now. I'm willing to bet wherever he is, he's probably lost, mouth probably open, possibly unaware of his actual position on earth right now. That man has my vote. And a lot of y'all aren't going to get it. A lot of y'all, bro, come on, bro. Biden, he could barely walk. Yep. But you won't get it. If y'all succeed in voting Donald Trump into office and he begins to actually ruin people's lives and, Project 2025 goes into play and all of that, don't come back here talking about some, damn, bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Y'all don't get it. Y'all don't get it. Hillary was the right choice, and now we're finding out now. And if Trump wins again and Biden is done away with, y'all are gonna look back on this and be like, damn, bro, we should have voted for Joe Biden. I know y'all will. You don't think so right now, but you will. Donald Trump just sat there and lied about not knowing anything about Project 2025, despite the fact that there's now a video circulating of him being aware of the entire plan. So, y'all go on ahead and vote for the liar in chief. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. These justices have to go. Cortez is on the right path. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.